Hello, welcome to Band T-Shirts with Leah. I'm Leah, I live in Adelaide or Ghana land, and this is episode 3 of my weekly podcast where we have a one-sided conversation about my band T-shirt collection. Each week I pick out a T-shirt from my collection, I show it to you, we talk a little bit about the T-shirt, describing it as well, and if you're wondering why I'm describing it when you can see it, it's because at some point as well I'm hoping to make an audio version of this podcast too. So if I just say, this is the T-shirt, do you like it? That's not super helpful. So that is also why I describe it. Also, I'm trying to make things a little bit more accessible, which is why I'll also be trying to do captions on my podcast as well. But I've got to see how that works out. Anyway, this is actually an ambitious podcast for me because I thought I would do one a week and that was a manageable, I guess, workload. That's not accurate, but let's call it a workload. But I thought, since I just did Birds of Tokyo, I should do Foo Fighters too, because I saw them with only a day's gap in between. I saw Birds on the Thursday, and then I saw Foo Fighters on the 2nd of December on the Saturday. So I thought, hey, you know what, while I'm just getting this podcast started, I should try to get some traction and movement. I should do like these 2 podcasts as well, like back to back, like I saw the shows back to back. Now, to be honest, that seems a little bit hard and a little bit stupid, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, I am wearing a T-shirt, as you can see already, a band T-shirt. This one is a brown T-shirt, and it's got kind of cream writing on it that says Foo Fighters, and then underneath that it says Boxing Club, established 1994. And on the back of this is a very small panel, maybe about, 3 inches, that says Foo Fighters and then like a crown. They hadn't got into that FF branding yet, I don't think, when I got this. So I got this T-shirt in 2003, I think, at the Big Day Out, which I went to in Melbourne. That was the only time I went to a Big Day Out outside of Adelaide, and I'm pretty sure that I got this one in the Melbourne one. You can tell it's aged as well because it's kind of got this crunchiness in the print. You know how it kind of does that, like, you know what I'm saying, where it starts to break up the print a little bit. And to be fair, that would be because this shirt is 21 years old. So here's my new one, the one that I got in December. It is blue. I'm going to say kind of a light blue, not pale blue, but light blue. And it has a dark blue round logo on it with the now, I'd say, fairly traditional FF of the Foo Fighters, that kind of cursive one. And it says, "But here we are," and the circle around it. Now, they didn't have a lot of T-shirts that had the date or tour name on there, only a couple, and this was one of them. So on the back, it's got kind of a geometric pattern where there's like 3 separate panels, and it lists in there the places where they toured. Like on this, I'm going to say Australia, New Zealand leg, because I'm pretty sure it's got New Zealand on here too. It does. So it's got the Everything or Nothing at All Foo Fighters World Tour 23-24. Then it lists the dates: Perth, Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and then Auckland, Christchurch, and Wellington in New Zealand. So that is the front again. I don't think I showed you the back at all. There is the back, and you can see kind of what the pattern looks there. I mean, I'd say cube, but that doesn't feel like the right description either. Anyway, we went, and because December can be quite warm, I went with my mum, and she did not take a hat because sometimes she's a bit silly. So when we were there, she was like, "Oh, I'll just buy a hat," because we got our merch out the front before we went into the venue, and they only had one hat, and it was this hat here, which is a green hat, which I like because I like green, and it has kind of like a compass on it, and the compass is like a gold color with, again, that FF in between it, and then the compass markers around the outside. Now, generally speaking, if we needed to buy a hat, I would say something like, "Look, I'll buy it, you can borrow it tonight, and then I'll just take it back later on." But this is a trucker hat, and I don't like trucker hats, so I did not offer to do that this time. I was like, "Yep, you're going to buy that hat, and it's going to be your hat and not mine." But anyway, it is a nice green, and I like that it is kind of padded. There's a softness to it, but I don't like the netting on trucker hats. I'm not about that. I'm not about the trucker hat lifestyle. Anyway, so I'm going to put this t-shirt up in the background again, the blue t-shirt in the background again, like I did with the Birds of Tokyo one last episode. So I'll reuse my Lego to do that, and I'll be back in a minute. I didn't need a hat because, much like today, I feel like you're never fully dressed without a smile. No, just kidding. I feel like you're never fully dressed without a cap, and I wear one almost all the time. The only time I don't wear one is when I'm at work in the office, because even if I'm working from home, I'll often wear one then. So I didn't need a hat because I was somewhat prepared, but I will say that it was probably warmer than we were expecting, but it was still great weather though. I'd prefer it to be a bit warmer than cold. Anyway, so I got the tickets pretty much as soon as they came out. You had to, right? They were so popular, they sold out so quickly. I got 2 tickets. I forgot I got 2 actually. I thought I only got 1 because I was just in a rush, and I thought I don't have time again for people deciding what they want to do or what they don't want to do. I've got early access. I'm just buying my ticket anyway. Tickets were they were $230 actually, $229, and it was at Cooper Stadium, or Hindmarsh Stadium, which is what it used to be called before these days of, sponsorship and commercial renaming of things, those simpler times. But I'd never been to Cooper's before, and this was the first time that I was going. Anyway, I forgot that I had 2 tickets probably till about 2 weeks before. And then I was like, oh, does anyone want to go? And I put a post on Facebook, I was like, oh, I've got a spare ticket if someone wants to buy it. And a few days later, my mum said to me, she's like, oh, I'd like to go. I'll buy your ticket to Foo Fighters. And I was like, no, you don't need to do that. It's fine. Like, it's popular. Someone will pay for it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. She was like, no, I'd like to go. I want to go and see them. I was like, oh, okay then. She's like, I've never seen them. I'd like to go. I was like, oh, yeah, of course you can go then. Because she was like, if nobody else wants them. I'm like, no, if you want it, you can have it. So anyway, took Mum, and we were in GA1 or GA front. I don't know, but you know how now they split up GA into 2 parts. So you have a bit of crowd control, I guess. So we were in the front part. Now, I'll tell you this, when we went into Hindmarsh and had a look at it, that that ticket price, it goes into production. The stage was enormous. It was so high, and the speakers were they were massive. They were so big, and I when you just stare at something and you're kind of in a little bit of shock, because I feel like I haven't seen such a massive stage for a while. I don't know how long it's been, but anyway, I don't know what I was expecting. Of course, Foo Fighters were going to be huge. Of course, they were going to have massive sound. Well, just as an aside, I got my ears checked yesterday, and hearing is still fine or in the acceptable level, which is surprising because there is many a time in the past 20 years when I've stood, this far from a speaker, like, just, soaking it all in. But anyway, still fine, luckily. So I don't think I saw any of the first band. I might have, I'm not sure now, but I did see a bit of the chats. They were fun. They were, like a local Australian band, and they were good fun. And then it was time for Foo Fighters to come out, and that was, that was funny. Again, that thing where you feel the crowd building because the lights start to go down and you know that they're about to come out, and then it's all going to pop off. So it was very exciting. It was jarring to see a new drummer. Taylor Hawkins was a very visible part of Foo Fighters, and that's kind of unusual in that drummers aren't always so visible, but he was, and so not seeing him was very jarring initially. Having said that, like, John Freese, he was amazing. Like, he's such high energy and just really, really brought so much to the show. And having said that, and having seen him and having thoroughly enjoyed his performance, it was still very jarring to see Foo Fighters without Taylor. And, I think it's great that they took the time that they needed, obviously because, grief is a process and it's ongoing, to decide what they wanted to do, and then finding a way for things to work for them, because that's really who it has to work for, whether or not we're like, but I really want to see him tour, and what about us? It's about them and how it makes it work, how they make it work for them. Anyway, I didn't write a set list again. Of course not. Why would I? That's not who I am. This is a higgledy-piggledy summary. based on me looking back through some videos that I took. Also, my storage filled up during the show, so there is a few less reminders than I would like, because I was like, oh, it's full. My memory is full. They opened with All My Life.
Another reason to bleed, one by one, hitting up my sleeve.
Dave said they were going to play for like 2.5, 3 hours, and they did. They played The Pretender.
What if I say that ideas? What if I say it's not just another one? No way, no to pretend that. What if I say you remember to break? What if I say that ideas? What if I say it's not just another one?
Great stadium songs like My Hero and Learn to Fly.
Truth or consequence, say it aloud. Use that evidence, race it around. Ready? There goes my hero, watch him as he goes.
Like, Dave is such an engaging frontman. He loves what he does, and he's done it for a very long time. And he wants you to get involved. He wants you to sing and get into it. And this is his intro to Times Like These.
I'm into it. To be honest, that's what we do every fucking night, so. But for those of you who've seen this before, you know I like it when you fucking sing along to our songs. It's one of my favorite things. And if you don't know the words, look at the person next to you. It's not Beethoven. You can learn that shit real quick. Let's start now. This song's called Times Like These. It sounds like this. I'm a one-way motorway. I'm a road that drives away, follows you back home.
Yeah, so I moved just before that. So even though I still stayed in that GA1 area, but I was a little bit probably to the left and about halfway between, I guess, the back of our area and the stage. But I moved right back to now right where the sound mixing was and, you know, the production crew was. Man, and there were so many people in there, like, I don't know, like 7, 8, maybe more. And there were so many screens and there was so much equipment because, again, this is a huge show that they're putting on, like, massive. So there's a lot going on, and there's, like, yeah. So we were at points, you know, sometimes you're watching the stage and then you're just watching what they're doing, because it's not really often in life you get to see, well, you don't get to see people doing that type of work specifically, but it's also, you don't always get to see people doing a thing that they're good at and they're passionate about. I mean, a lot of the time when we're watching people work, it's just our regular grind job and we're just doing it. Even if we're good at it, we're just doing it. But it's nice to watch people do something that looks so interesting and something where you are immediately seeing the output of what they're doing. You know, you're immediately seeing the fruits of their work. Dave played the Battle of the Beaconsfield Miners, which when he was talking about it, I was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't that long ago, was it? And anyway, it was. Time moved very fast. Did Monkey Ranch, which was so great. They played Aurora, and this is where Dave talked about Taylor again and how this was his favourite song of theirs. I just think it was a great way for them to keep him with them whenever they perform. I mean, he did talk about Taylor throughout the show, and he told funny and touching stories. So, you know, it wasn't, I mean, it's kind of the elephant in the room though, isn't it, right? Like, you can't say nothing because it's obvious that he's not there, but also, like, they were so close as a band and as people that it's, you know, it's obviously difficult for them or challenging for them to manage this whole process, and they I think it's so great that they find a way to keep him with them when they're performing. And, you know, I think in some ways it would be easier to not play a song that they know that he loved because it brings him straight to the forefront. But maybe, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you approach these things, right? Yeah, so they played This Is a Cool, and that was big. That felt like everyone was singing. There's another bit too. I don't know what song this was from, but when everyone had the lights on in their phone. I can't remember now because the only bit I have is the actual footage of people with their phone lights on, kind of, you know, creating. And it was so light in there. It's so bizarre when you think about how small the flash is or the torch is on your camera, but how much light it makes when everybody's doing it in what is essentially a confined but outdoor space, but like closely compacted. Anyway, I don't know what that was from, but it was so good. Also, they did a cover of AC/DC's Big Balls with their long-term drum tech singing. So she's from Adelaide, and it was so fun. It was, you know, sometimes when someone says, "Oi, they're going to play Big Balls," and you're going to enjoy it, you're like, am I then? Of course I are. As soon as somebody starts singing about big balls, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to laugh. Anyway, I mean, this obviously I haven't talked about 3 hours worth of songs there. So again, you can get the set list and you can see everything I've missed, which is probably a lot. I'm not perfect. I'm just talking about feelings and vibes. You know, I'm not giving a statistical analysis of everything that happened. They finished with Everlong, of course. Like, it's an obvious choice, but sometimes the obvious choice is the right choice, right? So, like, the crowd loved it. You knew it was coming because, you know, we're heading into encore territory. We haven't heard it yet, so if we don't get it in the encore, there might be a riot, but obviously we heard it in the encore. But it was a massive night. The sound was incredible. The production values on the stage were like crazy. There was one point when I was watching the stage and they had like this visual display, and I was like, is that a real UFO hanging from the ceiling? Is it a real UFO? And then I thought, you should watch it to see if the UFO lifts up into the top of the stage. And then I was like, is that a real van hanging from the top of the stage? My brain cannot process what it is seeing right now. And I haven't been drinking, right? I've had like water, so I'm not drinking, but I was just watching it being like, no, it's not real. They haven't bought this massive UFO to hang from the stage. And then I was like, have they though? There's so much depth in these graphics, like it's incredible. Anyway, it looks so good. That does feel like a very short summary of what was actually a massive show. Massive. I don't know, they probably did about 20 to 25 songs. It was just so good, right? Great sound, great performance, great energy, great lighting, great visual, like just so well done. But I mean, I don't know. If you want to know every song they played, I mean, like I said, you can Google these set lists online. I'm not here to provide that level of detail because I can't maintain that level of detail in my brain. But it was absolutely worth the $230 ticket price. 100%. It was worth more than that. I mean, I would prefer it if ticket prices didn't just keep going up and up. But you can tell, you know, when you see someone sometimes and you think, I'm not really sure where the money went for this, or I'm not really sure why they think they can charge that much for what they're putting out. Oh yeah, absolutely not with this. Not with this. I could tell exactly where the money went. But it did make me laugh because it made me think of that clip where Kurt Cobain is finding out, I think it's someone's concert, maybe it's Madonna, and it's like $80, and he's so shocked. He's like, $80? Who's charging $80 for a concert? I was like, oi mate, now heaps of people are, and they're charging way more than that. I can't remember the last time I saw someone for $80. Probably pre-2020 for sure. My favourite songs. One of them is My Hero. I mean, I guess that's kind of a pretty obvious one for a lot of people, right? Because we hear it and it reminds us of a particular person, so we like it because we associate it with very strong, happy memories, right? And when I hear it, it reminds me of my brother, and I think of him heading off in airports and doing his thing and just being kind of like fearless in his approach. And I just think, man, I wish I was doing that. I also love Best of You. I love that kind of growly sound, the kind of growly element that Dave has to his voice, particularly at the start, and then it kind of goes into a more kind of light graveliness. I don't know if that's the real, I don't know if that's a real word. That's what it feels like. Anyway, I think so good. I was just editing the podcast and I realised that I forgot to talk about something. And that is that I've got beef with Dave Grohl. Not a lot of beef because, look, I don't think you can have a lot of beef with him. He literally feeds homeless people and people at risk of homelessness. He doesn't just feed them by like throwing money, which is obviously a good thing too, but cooks food and serves people and treats people like people. So, you know, he's obviously a nice guy doing nice things. Plus, he has quite the reputation for being the nicest guy in rock and roll. So, I can't have full-on beef with him, but I have a little bit of beef with him. And that is that I read something once that he said that he didn't like when bands toured their albums. I don't mean like a production tour, but when they do like an album tour. So they come and, when they play an album from start to finish, he doesn't like that. He believes that it's self-indulgent. I was like, you know who else it's indulgent of? Me. And other people like me. Sometimes you love a song so much, but it doesn't have single potential, and the odds of you hearing it at a concert are pretty slim. So when someone says, we're playing blah album cover to cover, oh my God. It's like then you know for sure you're going to hear that song. You're definitely going to hear it live. And that's what you want. So it's not self-indulgent. Well, maybe it is self-indulgent, but it's also fan-indulgent and Leah specifically indulgent. So that's one thing, right? Because you get to sometimes hear a song you might not have otherwise heard. But the other thing is that sometimes when you listen to an album, and this is probably, I would say a more common thing when CDs were more common before we started streaming so much, is that you would get the CD, and depending on what you're doing, you might open it up and you'd be looking at the cover art, you're listening to the songs, maybe you're reading the lyrics, you're listening to that album like cover to cover, or you're like driving in the car and you've got the album on and you're listening to it from start to finish, and you're probably on repeat if you're a repeat listener like I am, but you're listening to it the way that it was intended, right? And maybe it's a concept album, so it's that kind of little story that zigzags through the whole album. But other times as well, it's just a great flow between the different songs. And I just really love that. They love that. So maybe he's changed his mind. Maybe he never really said it. But that is my little beef with Dave Grohl. And I'm sure he's heaps bothered by it. But anyway, little beef. A band that I wish I'd seen. This is another that I'd wish I'd seen because I definitely won't get to see them. It's Nirvana. Of course it is. Like, well, how can I be talking about Dave Grohl and not say anything about Nirvana and wanting to have seen them? So, man, they played the first Big Day Out in 1992, and I was just a little pup then. There was no way I was going to a festival at that age. I wouldn't have even known what a festival was. I wasn't one of those sort of cool kids. I had no idea it was even on. And then, Kurt Cobain, he died when I was very young. He was very young, so obviously I never got a chance to see him. But I just think that Nirvana just would have been incredible to see. I think, when you think about now, like even now, what an impact Unplugged, that MTV Unplugged set has, and how, you can hear the way that he interacts with the crowd a little bit, the way that they interact with each other, and then, of course, the way that they sounded, just amazing, right? Amazing. And I still listen to them. I was only listening to Nirvana yesterday. It was great. And it's funny if you kind of try to think about what makes them special and one of a kind seems kind of naff, because if you think of a lot of other vocalists, the same or contemporary vocalists to him, they all seem one of a kind. Obviously, you've got Kurt Cobain, Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder, Lane Staley, Scott Weiland. They're all kind of one of a kind. Which then you're like, well, surely one of them might be a little bit like two-ish of a kind. But they're not. They're both. They were all special. All amazing. So, yeah, I think it just would have been great to see Nirvana. Such a lasting legacy, I think. Like, really, for anybody who loves music, but particularly if you like rock, grunge obviously, but if you like rock, if you like independent, if you like people who just, I guess, push a boundary that wasn't there, just that's so great. Anyway, now I'm just thinking about it so much I can't even really talk. I'm just thinking about, like, imagine being there. Imagine actually seeing Nirvana live. So it probably seems like a pretty good place for me to stop, because this is a podcast and I have to be saying things, otherwise it seems a bit silly to keep filming. Anyway, thanks for joining me for Band T-Shirts with Leah. This is a band T-shirt. This is a band T-shirt. This is Leah, and this is goodbye. Bye.